created and leads the Har Hashem band, or Zimra, who joins services once a month at Second Shabbat. Thank you, Holly. Next to Holly is Corinne. Corinne is a freelance writer and historian who has published 5 books and is a staff writer for several magazines. She's editor of Halapid, the Journal of the Society for Crypto-Judaic Studies. Next to Corinne is Imam Shafi N Aziz. Imam Shafi is the Imam of the Colorado Muslim Society. In this role, he has sought to serve the Colorado Muslim community, strengthen interfaith dialogue and relations, and enhance the Islamic educational activity of the Colorado Muslim Society. And at the end is Reverend Roger Woolsey. Roger is the director and pastor of the Wesley Fellowship at the University of Colorado. Roger is an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church who has served churches in Minnesota, Iowa, and Colorado. Thank you. So I just wanted to start, give you all a chance to respond to what we just saw, whether it's tied to the theme or not, whatever reactions you may be having. Anyone?
Well, I'd like to begin by letting all of you know that the phenomenon of the descendants' return, the ongoing story of the converso, is very much alive around the world today. And if you're not aware, the effects of the colonization of Spain from the 15th century through the early 18th century brought descendants of Nuevo Cristianos, Jews converted by force, to the New World, as well as the Spanish Inquisition, which flourished in New Spain up until 1885 in Santa Fe. That said, you may or may not be aware that we have in our own backyard, so to speak, the San Luis Valley, southern Colorado, and most of northern New Mexico have been proven to have been the strongholds for many of the conversos that sought to get as far away from the Inquisition as possible. So this dialogue continues as many Spanish Catholics become aware of their ancestry through either DNA research or simply the cataloging of ritual and ceremony, finally adding up to a picture of understanding that up until the 21st century was really not understood. So that said, we really have a very vibrant community of people around the world, Central America, South America, all of Iberia. Wherever the church was strong, there are those who hid their Judaism and today are awakening to a new reality. If anybody's interested, the Society of Crypto-Judaic Studies welcomes your support.
And I'll say that at our synagogue in Boulder, a few times in my years there, people have come up to me and said, I'm here because I figured out that I'm supposed to be here. I figured out that I come from Jews. And I didn't know that until I traced my DNA or I figured things out. And we've definitely had people become Jews by choice today when they really felt they were Jews by blood, but they actively converted to become Jews openly today. So I absolutely see that in my synagogue. And I wanted to add, you asked for just responses to what we saw. You know, as someone who lives what Ami was speaking of, what the character was, you know, Simchat Torah and reading the Torah at the end and the beginning, and B'ui Kala, calling the Shabbat bride. Those are things that I do in my calendar year. That's how I live as a Jew. And some of my congregants are here in this in the audience, and that's how we live. And to in American society, and I imagine this might be true for other people of many faiths, you know, we live our secular world and we live our religious world, and sometimes they come together, and hopefully in the way that we look at the world is certainly colored by all those experiences, but sometimes they're split more deeply, and sometimes they come together more succinctly. And certainly in the time that we're entering now, I think it's a question mark of how those things will weave together. But I had a very visceral reaction to that hidden Jewishness, because those aren't antiques. Those aren't things people did back then. That's how we live as Jews today.
Well, thank you. All right, so my first thought is, as a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, I have a sort of potentially detached perspective on this, and yet as I think about it, living in Boulder the last 12 years, not overly religiously friendly in many ways, I can get it to a certain extent. It's interesting, the subset of Christianity that I find myself singing with is called progressive Christianity, and part of that is a re-Judaizing of the faith, owning that Jesus is the Jew, and what can we benefit from as Christians, Gentile, or Jewish, whatever, to reclaim the Jewishness of Jesus. It's a blind spot and a great chasm. We're missing out on a wealth of blessing and information by pretending that hasn't been the case. So there's been some recent scholarship and some great people that I am blessed to know that are doing some good work in that direction, and it feels satisfying to kind of come to terms with that and re-own that and integrate it. So that's something I'll leave with.
Okay, so I want to say Assalamu alaikum. Salam means shalom, or peace in American English.
Alaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum, shalom, alaikum, it's the same thing. May peace be with you. I want to say that whenever power, dirty politics, and economic motivated reasons are mixed with religion, it led to what Spain, what the world is witnessing today. We cannot separate religion from our daily life. I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew, I'm a Muslim. When you wake up in the morning, you pray to God. In the evening, you pray before you sleep. You cannot separate that. But devil is working big time. And so I think something that needs to be recognized is the fact that as much as we call it a conquest, that the presence of Muslims under the name Moors in Spain, they ruled Spain. They promoted civility. Jewish were very peaceful, Christians were very peaceful. Jewish, Muslims, and Christians lived together. History has been changed a lot. And sometimes we are focusing on negativity. And then we pick and choose, and sometimes we are judgmental selectively. I think it is high time that we approach the global and universal problem holistically and not selectively. For example, a Christian may focus on a portion of what happened in Spain and then leave it there. But that is not the whole story. Jewish may also pick, okay, their suffering which happened, okay, their execution, persecution, oppression, segregation, isolation, all these big words. And it happened, but that is not the whole story. And so it has been proven that history about Spain and what conspired or inspired that has been written in the books is not the whole story. I would say the following. As a Muslim, God the Almighty tells me in the Holy Quran, chapter 49, verse 13, that all mankind, so God is addressing mankind. Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha, verily I created you from a male and a female, Adam and Eve. I came here because I came to join my brothers and my sisters. I came to join sons and daughters of Adam and Eve, regardless of your faith in this studio or hall. God says that our origin is one, apart from Darwin's theory of the possibility that we were chimpanzees and monkeys one time, that I don't believe in. And God also says, and I made you, God says, I made you to exist into different tribes and nationalities just for identity. And the best amongst you, the most dignified, is the one who is conscious of God, the one who fears God most. And so I think we need to revive this, that we are a family, that religion is not an issue of, should not be imposed on one another, because when it was imposed, okay, a group of people felt persecuted. But at the same time, the problems that we are having today, and they include the historic injustices, we should not approach them in selectively, but I believe in holistic approach. This is the message that I have regarding and I praised our brother that this is a very good initiative. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So you just began answering it, but one of the things I wanted to ask was the significance of this event, this story, these lessons for each of you as people of faith, as people rooted in your communities. What is the relevance? What is the relevance of this maybe historic moment, or again these themes that arose? Holly, if you want to get us started.
Well, and so one of the things that I was addressing before is it's so relevant in that it's the life that we as Jews live, the Shema and Kol Nidre and the things that are sung, we sing. I was sitting next to a congregant, she said, that's what I heard you singing that a few weeks ago. So the relevance is this dichotomy between hidden and open. And I was just teaching this morning when I was leading Shabbat services that in this chapter of the Torah that we were reading this morning, that we saw two examples of Abraham. One where he is protesting against God and arguing, can you find any holy people in these cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, so that you don't destroy them? So protesting to God, arguing, standing up to God, shaking one's fist at God, and ultimately he didn't win, but he protested. And then a few verses later, he's willing to sacrifice his son Isaac on the mountain, kind of this blind faith or this acceptance of, God asked, so I'm going to do this without questioning. And I asked people at services this morning, how do we make those decisions? How do we make a decision of when to protest and when to accept and when to listen? And it's similar. How do we make a decision of when to be open and honest and clear, and when to keep things hidden for our own safety or for our own needs? And I think it's relevant. It's relevant in my life all the time. And what's the difference between acting and accepting, and what are the consequences? I don't know the answer.
I would like to ask the audience, or the rest of us, the closing of the play is consummated in a paraphrase between the oppressor and the oppressed. Are we not simultaneously one and the same? The structure of the play relives the persecution, if you will, by an inquisitor to his victim, who is literally on trial overnight, if you will. And by retelling the story of his ancestor, we see the entire dilemma of living the double life. I've spent the last 15 years researching this subject, which I explored through a novel that came out 6 months ago, and found that my journey took me to many places and through many interviews with people that were somewhere on the road to return, either just toying with the idea or fully blown returnees, unseen, people who have come back to Judaism. And the degree to which people both accept and reject the idea of being branded as one thing or another is really, it's beyond one faith or another. It's about spirituality. It's about simply recognizing our togetherness. But I think this subject of oppression is one that really deserves to be addressed. I think that was the heart of the play for me.
I don't believe that there is a faith or a group of people or an individual who claims that he believes in God without having a room for non-adherent of that faith. Jewish or Judaism will tell me that I'm a Jew. Sometimes they tell us that we are the chosen ones of God. I claim the same, you claim the same. Okay? When you ask him, does your religion, Judaism, does your faith instruct you to be kind, generous, merciful, loving, to non-Jewish? He will tell you yes, there is a. When you talk to a Christian, I was just reading New Testament, Galatians chapter 5, verse 22 to 23. You do read books. Try to read as a young man. And I find that the word mercy and love and joy and generosity is mentioned. To the extent that it says that without that there is no law. What about Islam? It has room for non-Muslims. Quran chapter 17, verse 70. I know you have a problem with my tea. In America you have accents. Because you swallow tea. You don't say water. You never say that. You don't say water, ta. So I was colonized by British. And the Queen left me with this British African English. So I believe that in Islam, chapter 17, verse 70, God says that indeed, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. When we talk of humanity, God says that indeed I have honored all human beings, all mankind. But it is because of this selfishness within the faith, within our hearts, that sometimes makes us feel that it's all about me. You have right to say it's me, but not all about me, because you are not created alone. And so if we go back to relationships, it starts from there, that we need to recognize again that we are one. But the most important thing is that we are living in a dark era, even though we claim science and technology. We are so learned beyond education. Yet, the world is engulfed and covered with darkness that we are seeing. We live in fear. We are afraid of one another. We mistrust one another. Even your neighbor, who is that? Is she a Catholic or Seventh-day Adventist? That is a Jew. Which type of a Jew? Okay? That is a Muslim. Which type of a Muslim? A fundamentalist, or is he a moderate? We live in fear amongst ourselves because of lack of understanding and studying commonalities amongst us as human beings. You know you're a Jew and you're a Christian of any faith or any sect. But it remains that if we're in Denver, we have the same Parker Road, and I live the same shops, same university. Regardless of your faith, we go to the same hospital, university hospital. And it's high time that we sit down and we reflect upon commonalities that we have, which is more than differences. And then we have freedom of faith. I want all of you here to be Muslims. A priest and pastor wants all of us to be Christian. And my sister said that nowadays we have what is called voluntary conversion if you want to come back as a Jew. Okay? We need to understand commonalities. We need to, when we talk of civility, it means it goes beyond words. So this is the message, that we are a people, we are a family, we are a community, regardless of our faith. You have every right to invite, don't impose. You have every right to invite, don't be unjust, don't oppress, don't create fear in the society. This is what missed in Spain. Because if Jewish, who claims that they believe in God, 10 Commandments, and Christians, in the book of Mark, chapter 12, verse 27 to 28, if I'm wrong, Krista here, this is not very Jesus is asked of all commandments, which one is the most important commandment? King James Version, Revised Standard Version, any version. Jesus said the same word which was said here. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it rightly. Shema Israel, Elohim Adonai, Elohim Ach. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. I'm Shirabi. But it means that here, O Israel, the most important commandment of this is only one command. Muslims who claim, and we say, like any other person, Islam is a true religion. How comes that you create fear? How comes that you want to oppress? How comes that you don't consider humanity? Muhammad is asked, can you describe your God? He repeated the same statement of Jesus and Moses. God tells him, say Muhammad, he is only one God. People who claims faith, how comes that they have caused fear in the world, that they are fighting amongst themselves? It is shame for people of faith. And again, it doesn't mean that it's all about us. There are people who don't believe in God. They have their choice to live in this world. And all that we do, we need to strengthen our relationship. Our matter of faith needs invitation. It needs a conviction. It doesn't need war. It doesn't need terror. It doesn't need injustice and oppression. This is what missed in Spain, where Jewish were persecuted. Muslims also felt that, they were, should I say, persecuted. And this language of persecution is a matter of not sitting down and realizing that we are a community and we are one, and God is only one.
I just,
Roger, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I do. So the play itself, everything is political. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And towards the end, that very reference, that discussion around the oppressed and the oppressor, we are both. It's hard to not notice that it's talking about an Israeli professor in 1962. We know what was going on in the Middle East in '62 with Israel becoming a young country and unfortunately engaging in some practices that, objectively speaking, smack of persecution and oppression towards other people. And having someone, probably Jewish, naming that and admitting it and bringing it to fresh air, that kind of realness, that transcends that situation to all of us, I think. And unfortunately, it's ongoing. This intramural rivalry of the various religions, you sort of assumed that, I would want everybody here to be a Christian. Well, if we sat down a little longer, you'd learn that actually, no, I want the Jews to be the best Jews they can be. I want the Muslims to be the best Muslims they can be. No desire to convert you. In fact, showing up with the conviction and the integrity that you have, each of you, that's interesting, that's juicy, that's meaningful people knowing where they're coming from, who they are, showing up, they bring something to the table. Those that are sort of wishy-washy, not having a lineage, it's harder to navigate life. You can do it, and yet we're finding ourselves in a situation where, in Boulder maybe especially, if you are on the dating sites, no one says they're Christian or Jewish or Muslim. They say they're spiritual but not religious because they don't want to be perceived as, one of those religious people. So there's a hiding, a double life that's already happening in our midst. So we're all in the same boat with a different oppression, in a way, right before us. So I'll just put that up there.
Yeah, I was going to ask about press on that, because you also brought that up, Holly, the distinction between secular life and religious life. And I'd like to open it up to the audience, so I won't ask this question. But you all clearly expressed that the topic of the panel, faith and identity, expression and expression, the really core power that faith has in constructing these identities, in creating and carving out a space that isn't the secular, that brings different lessons, that brings a lineage. I think that way you framed it is really strong. So thank you all for that. Now to give the audience a chance, are there questions that anyone in the audience has?
Yeah. Several comments. One is there's this famous statement that says that those who don't learn from the history of the past are condemned to repeat it. And I think it's really a sad thing that, at least in our public schools, we don't learn history anymore, or at least minimal history. And as a result, we don't learn from the mistakes of the past, in which case we're condemned to repeat them. That was my first comment. So I really think the play is excellent at recreating the image of the mistakes of the past. So that's the first point. Maybe we can learn from it. Second thing is, I think the play is an incredibly strong plea to separate religion from political power. And throughout history, there's been, whenever these two are merged tightly, it's only a matter of time before there's persecution. So I think it's a strong plea for a secular state that encourages all kinds of religions to do their thing without discriminating or helping or hurting any of them, but the political power has to be separated from religious power. And just to comment on that, in modern times, if you think now Nazi Germany, that was a mixture of ideology and political power. And that also we have to avoid to the maximum possible extent. My comments.
And that kind of speaks to that question, again, of this distinction between secular and religious. And again, Holly and Roger, you both brought that out in terms of the personal experience. So I don't know if maybe you want to respond to that, if you have thoughts. I guess to reframe the question is, the distinction between secular and religious, you both kind of hinted towards it creating this double, this hidden thing. But at the same time, as you just said, there is maybe a need or a desire for that separation. So speaking to that tension.
I think that one's religion or spirituality, to connect to what you're saying, we can have that conversation as well, but one's moral compass and one's religion and lineage and the way that we've been taught can certainly inform the way that we are in the world. But I agree that religion can't necessarily be tied to politics. I think that that's absolutely a recipe for difficulty. So I think that personally for me, it's I'm lucky because I get to do work that is connected to who I am is completely in my work and in my life. But I believe that what I know, who I am as a Jewish person, is reflected in some of the decisions that I make in a way that other people might not see that as religious. So I might know that that was driven by the teachings of my religion, but it just seems out in the world. So I don't know if that's hidden or if that's just the connection between the two. But I think that we have to be absolutely extremely vigilant in separating judgment from in politics.
I guess the only thing I might add is there's all these ways of being, and in newer tribes and lineages people can be a part of. In yoga, it's maybe the yoga community, various forms of Buddhism that many people, maybe they're a Jubu, they're sort of both pools, and there's all kinds of new identities that people are creating and living in. The bottom line is we're social creatures and we do best in community, and we tend to thrive best with kindred spirits with some diversity of opinion there. And at our healthiest self, we have a community that has dissent and still some direction and support, and we're there for each other. The problem is when we start thinking is that any one of these is the one right true one, or that it's somehow better than others, or there's lacking in others and we don't respect the others. How we can grow to do that, I think, goes back to what you're saying. We have to get to know each other and show up who we are and learn who you are and be as real as possible. That's maybe the hardest thing in life, is just to be real to ourselves and then be real with others. I think that maybe is the first thing, is to do our personal work and then show up with our real self as we interact with others.
Can I make a comment here? One of the basic commandments says in the Bible, you shall not be friends like yourself. If the different denominations, any of the churches, mosques, and synagogues, would pay attention to the love and caring of your friend and your neighbor, equally as they
the show. I've been talking too much.
No, I asked you to respond.
Please, yes. Humanity is established in all scriptures. Humanity. And responding to, you were commenting to what my elder, big brother said, is yes, every faith, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, this is a universal, common, standard teaching that love for others what you love for yourself. In fact, it doesn't say that love for yourself what you love for others. It starts with others, and then you have faith. This is the message of God Islam. But yes,
The Quran says that.
yes. Love for others what you love for yourself. Prophet Muhammad made it clear.
Is it being taught?
Yes, it is taught. But we can't control souls and minds. You preach peace, somebody else is doing something opposite. The bigger picture is, if you go to England, the Church of England controls England in one way or another. This is the same thing that happens in Saudi Arabia, other countries. If you go to Iran, Iran, you have all Ayatollah and so and so. So religious has that. And in other countries, just to be brief. But what I want to say, I want to agree with my, should I say, colleague here, that I came here as a Muslim. And I'm talking as a Muslim. And I greeted as a Muslim. And so wherever I am as a Muslim, I don't separate myself from being a Muslim. The issue is not separation of secular and religion. In fact, this language of secular is spoken only in some parts of the world. I urge my elders and professors and doctors and learned people who are here, that when we want to judge the world, for example, with our lifestyle, then also we should expect resistance and failure. Part of the problem that we're having today, if you say secular, the word secular may not be known in my village. We have our lifestyle, we have our code of life, maybe we had a chief or we had a tribal king. So as much as we are pushing the word secular, because of education, because of advancement and civility, we have to know that other people in the world have their traditions and they have their cultures. We need to recognize that. This is why it has been, it has been very difficult for some of us. If you go to a people, whether in China, in Asia, or in Africa, and you say that this is how you should live your life, it becomes very difficult. I just wanted to make that comment. But, yes, I wanted to make that comment. People have their lifestyle, people have their morals, people have their ethics as a tribe, traditionally. And I think part of what we are suffering is me trying to impose my Islam, for example, on Americans. Saying that you must, using that word. They will tell me, please, we were born, raised here, this is our life, you love it, stay, you don't love it. Of course, you are not gonna be profiled like, whatever is brewing. So this is what I wanted to say. But the point, according to me, is that I'm a Muslim. When I sleep, I'm a Muslim. When I wake up, I'm a Muslim. Islam should have a provision for others. I should make sure that if I claim peace, then I should be peaceful to others. If I claim love, I should be loving to others. Okay? So this makes me to maintain my identity, but at the same time, socialize in the best manner. This is what I wanted to say. So people have their traditions, people have their cultures, and sometimes it becomes very difficult to make them change their culture because we want to sell them part of our culture. But that does not stop us from promoting civility, promoting peace, justice for all, and that does not allow us to oppress and be unjust to others.
Excuse me for asking, does Islam suggest a lifestyle to people or enforces a lifestyle on people?
Every religion has a code. we say that God said. If we talk of 10 commandments, you have to follow them. In fact, Jewish and Christians will agree with me that it's beyond 10 commandments. The whole of 5 books in the Old Testament, from Genesis, Exodus, these are all commandments. So as if you submit to God in Judaism or Christianity or Islam, then you have to abide with that. No religion restricts you 100%. There are restrictions, and then there are recommendations, and there are some areas whereby you can choose what to do within the boundaries of religion. When it comes to food, for example, no religion is going to tell my sister that you should only eat fish tonight, and you should not eat vegetables. There are areas. Which cloth are you going to have today? Is it red or blue? Or so every religion, Islam has things that God has made obligatory. You have to follow this. For example, we cannot change believing that there is only one God. And then there are areas of recommendation. Okay, this is recommended. If you do it, you are rewarded. If you don't do it, you may have it today, you may not. Being charitable. Okay, every day. If you help somebody today and you can't help tomorrow, God is not going to punish you. Only that you should continue whenever you have. And then coming areas of, I have a suit. Had you met me this evening, I was having the thawb, the long robe. Okay? But also, this is me here. So God does not tell me that you must only have that robe. So there are areas of, you can choose what to do within the boundaries. This is how Islam deals with our life.
I would just like to add that in the Western world today, we have the option of free will. We can choose practically everything from our faith to our political party to our gender, and in some cases, who can forget Rachel Dolezal, our race, a white woman who identified as black. I only mention that because the whole question of the converso dilemma, if you will, asks, is heritage identity? Well, it is only if you want it to be. Because for people who had ancestors who were Jews 500 years ago, for many of them the question is, so what? And we've been practicing Catholics for centuries. Why should it matter now? And this conflict or this discussion goes on at many levels in great depth between those that are reconciling that inheritance, that commitment, and the opportunity to choose. I don't think in the world that you come from, or at least most of the Middle East or Africa, that it would occur to a member of a tribe to consider re-identifying as something other than the group they were born into. But we're living in an evolving world where I think the differences and the barriers, I hope, are disappearing or evolving into a new oneness that will help, I hate to sound idealistic, but save the planet. We can still be Jews or Muslims, but we can't live by the separations, and the difference is we have to live according to the best that we can preserve and what carries us forward.
So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I do see one more question, so we'll take this as the last question.
I'm just wondering, how many in the panel see the play and Kareem's book, Controversials, as basically a reminder of the history of the world, which is that there are always people who want to manipulate religion to obtain political power and wealth, and they use religion to divide people, to start wars, or to inflict a dictatorship. The history of the Middle East is that dictators find an outsider, made them the enemy. It's like being in a college fraternity. You got the other fraternity is the enemy, or the other football team is the enemy. It's human nature to easily be persuaded that somebody else is your enemy, and then there are people who have the powers of persuasion to convince large numbers of people to follow them down a road that causes misery for millions of people for generations. And that to me is what this play is about, what your book is about, and what the history of religion is about, is that are sincere about their religions, but how do you avoid allowing your need for faith and spirituality to allow you to be taken over by somebody who's trying to manipulate you?
Any last words from any of the panelists?
So breakfast will be served.
I just want to evoke the writings of the fine Lessing in a play. There's a Muslim and a Jew that befriend each other, and the Muslim says, "You are a Muslim," and the Jew says, "What makes me a Muslim to you makes you a Jew to me." And in that regard, thank you for this panel, for being here and kind of looking for that oneness among us. Inshallah.
If you enjoyed the show, if you enjoyed the panel, please tell your friends. If you didn't, tell those who you don't like quite as much. See you next time.